3rd, 2019. If you would all please rise. Pledge.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Don Cavella.
Here.
Gary Stalboyne.
Here.
David Sars.
Here.
Scott Trowell.
Here.
Ted Dumaine. Here. Travis Hines.
Here.
Tom Sinkowitz. And Scott Gardner is excused absence. All right, next item is to accept the minutes from the April 17th, 2019 meeting. The minutes have gone out and distributed. Any questions or discussion on the minutes?
I just wanted to say that I think that they are very thorough, and I motion that we accept them as presented.
I'll second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries to accept the minutes from the April 17, 2019 meeting. All right, first item under new business. To discuss and act upon the MBR amount of $551,977 to come from the fund balance. This was on the agenda for those of you who attended the Board of Selectmen last night. Was on that agenda and was approved by the Board of Selectmen last night. The one thing that I wanted to ask, and I'll take advantage of the fact that Ken is here, just a quick question, Ken, on going forward. Assuming that we approve this MBR amount tonight, and of course it's already been approved by the Board of Selectmen, what is the next step and what's the verification process with the Department of Education, the state, to basically confirm to the Board of Finance that we're in the clear? Do you have to write a letter to them, and whatever correspondence comes to them, can you provide copies to the Board of Finance just showing that?
Yes, all of that. If you take that action, it must go to the public vote in order for the vote to have a referendum. The law states that the MBR only relates to the appropriation. So if the town and the public votes the appropriation increase, then that number will be recorded in an act of the vote. That motion that is taken on the point that it gets validated, because they think it takes 1 or 2 days to have them check the votes, whatever, that will be sent to the Commissioner of Education, showing that we met the obligation $35,983,47, and once that number is the appropriation, they will then send us a letter. I will ask that letter to be sent to the board, to the town, and myself, verifying that the MBR and the $1.1 million penalty has been released. And once that's done, it cannot come back, so that's good. Whether that money's spent, we know we are not planning to spend it. Whether the money's spent or not, clearly it says the former MBR used to be about expenditures. Now it's just about appropriation. If you made the money, you appropriated it, even though we won't expend all that money, we will be clear of the $1.1 million. You will get that probably before June.
All right, thank you. Other discussion or questions? No other questions or discussion? Then can we entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to appropriate $551,977 come from the fund balance to, for the MBR.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the MBR amount of $551,977 to come from the fund balance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item is to discuss and act upon proposed budget 2019-2020. So hot off the press, we have our copies. Everybody got their copies? No? Oh, okay. No, that's all right.
So, based on the initial proposal of the budget for FY20, we were able to reduce spending from that initial proposal by roughly $532,000. That enabled us to project a mill rate reduction from 2 points to 0.5. So we are projecting a 0.5 mill rate increase in fiscal year 20 based on reductions we've made to the initial proposal of our budget. We did that in a number of different ways, primarily from the police department. Of that $532,000 in cuts, the police department came up with roughly $95,000 of that. We also were able to assess our collection. We are on track where we have collected over 100% of our revenue at this point in fiscal year 19. Therefore, we felt comfortable with moving our collection percentage from 97 to 98.5. That enabled us to reduce our mill rate significantly. I would like to have had packets for everybody, but throughout this, we did try to maintain everyone's current FTE rate, so each department will not have any infliction on their FTE rate. No one's salary should be, no one's salary is affected with the cuts we made of the $500,000, which is significant. So we wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. I know there was some concern as far as different cuts. I guess being able to provide this in enough time would have been able to give you guys the opportunity to ask more questions. But we were working diligently over the weekend and up until the last minute to make sure that we were able to reduce the mill rate as much as we could. Now, I should note that this mill rate projection is based upon ensuring the ECS revenue is at $15.1 million. If that were to change, the mill rate will change with it. Provided we find some other type of revenue, but I don't see that happening. So the $532,000 in cuts, I want everybody to know is us trying to sustain services for Plainfield the best way we can, while operating on a budget that doesn't inflict the taxpayer. I'll give you guys a second to look it over if you have any questions. But I think it's important that we recognize that the mill rate will not increase by 2 whole points.
How long do you think she can sustain that tax collection rate over the 97%?
Well, it's well over 100% as of right now. We've exceeded our property tax, our
Other revenue.
our other local revenue, and our back taxes revenue significantly.
And that's been going on now for a number of years.
Yes.
But how much longer can it go on before she's finally collected right up to, 97, 98?
Well, I think we'll reassess next year to 98.5, depending on how much revenue we take in for FY20, and then that would have to be an annual judgment. I wouldn't want to project too far into the future. When we would like to have revenue proposals for the town that might increase our collections. But without any proposals to generate revenue, I'd rather not make an assumption on the collection rate.
Could you use the mic, please? Thank you.
1% equals what? 275,000, roughly?
I think I had this sheet last, do we have the number? It's, I think 1% is just under, there we go. Yeah, $968,000 is $1 million.
That's 1 mil, that's on 1% of the collection rate. She collects 97, he'll go into 98 and a half. That 1.5 equals how many dollars?
That's a good question.
I think each one is about 275, am I right?
Yes, I don't hold me to that, but I will find out. I have the number, I just don't have it on me right now.
It's got to be whatever the mill rate is, I think, huh?
No. To substantiate or to correlate the 1.5 increase. But I will get that to you. So the 2%, the 2 mil increase would have totaled roughly $1 million. And as a, the 0.51 mil increase will generate $473,000. It should also be noted that we're not initiating a supplemental tax. So the mill rate is our generation, our tax base.
Kathy, anything to add on the proposed budget? I'm not going to say no. The finance director has covered a number of items, but there's not really anything else to add.
No, I think he pretty much covered it all. I think the important thing that we have to remember is, again, that is using the education cost share at the 15.1 million, not what was in the proposed budget. So that it really is dependent on that. No, I think he's pretty much gone over everything, and you have the sheets with all the cuts on it, so if you have any questions regarding any of those cuts.
So I'll just ask again, why are we using the $15 million number when we're looking at the governor's budget that has a $14 million number in it?
Well, we don't know the governor's budget yet.
I understand that, but we got a governor's budget that the legislature's gonna vote on. This is 2017 all over again, just like I said in the last meeting. This is the exact same thing. We used a number that wasn't right. We're gonna be $600,000 more in revenue than what we were planning on, and then the governor's budget could get passed, and then we're gonna be looking for a $600,000 cut. Or you're gonna be talking about supplemental bills again. All we're doing is fooling the public by using a number that is not the governor's budget. And I'm against it.
Is that a 2-year budget, Scott?
It's a 2-year budget. It gets worse in year 2. It takes another $400,000 in year 2.
Is it 6 and 4?
It's 6 and 4. Yep,
That's the 2 years.
yep. There's a budget right there. You take one and pass
It's
it
not
down.
1 million for next year.
No, it's 6 and 4. There's a budget right there. You can just pass it down.
I thought you said 1 million for this year.
618,964. So we're putting a number out there that people are gonna vote on, could pass. And then if the governor's budget passes, then we're gonna be sitting here cutting $600,000 and people are gonna be asking questions.
You have a plan B?
Yeah, plan D is we should put the revenue number down to where it belongs, to what's being proposed.
Is that adjusted already?
That checks it back up.
Yeah. So what?
If you put that back in.
Yeah, if you put that in, you're asking for another 600,000, you're asking for roughly over 1 mil increase, 1.1 mil increase.
Yeah.
Can I respond? The governor's budget doesn't come out until October. There's no definitive governor's budget at this point. And I think we talked about speculation of what the budget would be, but we're in the same position as every municipality. Every municipality receives their ECS money after they create their own budget. That's how the governor's budget figures out each municipal ECS dollar. Depending on what we appropriate, will determine what the ECS grant eventually is. If we overestimate or we underestimate, it doesn't matter because every municipality is at the behest of the state.
It does matter, because you're putting a budget out there with a number that is not a number that we're seeing from the governor. So you're gonna speculate high so we can keep the middle rate low so that people will vote for the budget. It's a shell game.
I'd say we're expecting it to maintain the same rate it is at FY19. We're not expecting it to be high, we're just expecting a little bit of flexibility. We don't know the number. We could just as easily assume that the number will be higher than 15.1 million as it will be lower. We just don't know.
I understand we don't know, but we're doing this so the people will pass the budget. This is my view of it. Again, when the time comes, my vote will be no.
I'd just say respectfully, we're carrying the 15.1 million over because of uncertainty. If we were certain, we have a number that would be different from the previous fiscal year. There's no guarantee what the number will be. And we're in no different situation than any municipality that receives ECS grants. Every municipality will adjust their budget throughout the fiscal year in accordance with the grants they receive from the state. And that's not just ECS, that's steep grants, that's every single type of grant that's received from the state. Pequot grants, they change from year to year.
So Tom, and Ron, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but by using the 15.1 million, that is putting the mill rate down, bringing it down. If we were to use what's in the proposed budget, that would increase our mill rate. But I look at it this way, the worst thing that can happen, if we use the 15.1 million and it comes in at the lower amount, we have a very healthy fund balance. So I don't see why the taxpayers should have to pay on us not having the number. It is not our fault, it's the state. So what you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, that you think we should use the lower number and the residents should pay a higher mill rate, when we could use the 15.1, and if it does come in lower, we have a healthy fund balance. We could take that $618,000 from our fund balance and not create a mill rate for the residents. So I think that when you look at that, you have to weigh that out.
What I'm saying is the residents need to know what the real number is that the governor is proposing. We're not giving the residents the real number that the governor is proposing at this point in time. That's what we're not doing.
I respectfully say that nobody is giving their residents the real number. If we don't know the real number, we won't know until October.
But shame on all those other towns. We don't have to be like all the other towns. We don't.
I'm not, I guess, the arbitrary number, I think it would be irresponsible of us to project higher than 15.1 million. I think it would be, I think it's conservative to carry over the 15.1 million from fiscal year 19 to fiscal year 20 as an estimate to work off. We just don't know the number because of the way the system is set up. The state will create their budget after the municipalities create their budget. And that's just, the way the system's set up. So to say it's the wrong number, or it's is kind of, I would say, I would ask what the right number is. It could just as easily not be 14.5 million as it won't be 15.1 million. We just don't know the number. Nobody does. But a conservative estimate says 15.1 million.
Any other questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, as a matter of moving the meeting along, is it pretty fair for us as a board to at least adopt a mill rate increase that we feel comfortable presenting to the taxpayers? What's the sense of the other board members on that?
Are you still going to go forward with the proposed budget?
I'm just asking a question to the board of what number do we want to get to? What is it comfortable?
That was good.
So what you see in front of you here is you're comfortable with the numbers that make it up
Okay.
or not?
I'm good with that.
Gary, Dave, thoughts?
I don't like the 15.1 million myself. I'd rather, worst case scenario, than if you get more than 5.
I'm not sure we have hard numbers, as he said. 15.1 does present an arbitrary number to the people. I mean, a conservative estimate would really be 14.5. That's a true conservative estimate. 15.1, if people know what that entails, there may be changes, or we have to have a plan B in effect. So if we don't get the money, we've got to put a freeze as we've done in the past, and there has to be at least knowledge ahead of schedule saying, well, we still have to come up with $600,000.
Well, I think we're asking to put a burden on the taxpayer on an unknown. And I'd much rather adjust accordingly, as most budgets do throughout the fiscal year, because there is just as equal a chance for it to be 15.1 million as there is 14.5. We do have enough to absorb that that $6 million gap. Therefore, it shouldn't come at the cost of the taxpayer now. I would say that, and I'm against dipping into the fund balance beyond what's appropriate, beyond more than we replenish, but I'd feel more, I think a more conservative estimate would be to not put the burden on the taxpayer, to not ask for a tax increase. I think that's, with an arbitrary number, it's better to not ask the taxpayer to pay for an uncertainty on our part, as opposed to doing what they expect of us, and that's adjust accordingly throughout the fiscal year.
So whatever the adjustment is, take it out of the fund balance again.
No.
More big cuts.
Well,
I mean, using 50, because you're gonna have to find 300 to 600 grand, assuming,
well, assuming,
because you're not gonna get to 15 more.
I'd rather.
I'm hoping I'm wrong.
I'd rather not speak definitive terms when it comes to finding a number for the ECS grant. We could just as easily say that low SIP funding will come under as well, and therefore we should adjust accordingly for that as well. We could easily say that we're not going to receive any money from the PQAP grant, and we're going to have to, we might as well not project revenue for that grant as well. It's a big number, and I understand the focus on it, but if we take the same attitude towards all of the grants we see from the state that we're taking towards the ECS grant, we have a $2 million increase.
So Ron, to rebut that, I take that stance because there's a number that's out there. We don't have a number for the LoCIP right now. We don't have a number for the two-part grant, but we've got a number staring us in the face for the governor. Now, let me ask you a question, because I remember what you said last meeting. You said you need 2 months worth of, we should have 2 months in the fund balance, correct?
Correct.
All right, we just gave another $551,000 away. We now have 1.8 months in the fund balance left. We're now below 2 months. And now, we're gonna talk about taking, if we don't get the money, we're talking about taking another $600,000 out. Last meeting, you said we should have 2 months in. So
Well, we have 14.8 million in the fund balance, 6.5 of that is restricted, 8.3 is unrestricted.
Right.
So we've got well more than 2 months worth in terms of what's considered acceptable. Could you repeat what you had said before the comments on the fund balance?
Well,
as far as
the fund balance went down to 1.8 because we just took out another basically 552,000, and now we're talking about we want to take out another. if the governor's numbers come true, we're talking about we want to take another 600,000 out.
Well, we're not, I don't know, could you tell me the source of this guaranteed 14.5 number you're projecting for the ECS grant? I don't know.
I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I'm saying I have a number that's in the governor's budget.
I don't know, the governor has a budget, and we don't know what that number's gonna be. You're telling me that the governor has put out a budget that says it's 14.5 for our municipality. I have documentation from last year that says it's 15.1, I know that was under speculation.
Can you please get that? Again, I'm just asking about the, now I'm asking about the fund balance, because now we're talking about if we don't get the money, we gotta take it out of the fund balance. The fund balance is, I'm all for spending out of the fund balance, but we're getting low. The 2 months I was always told was on the unrestricted, that we should be having 2 months worth of unrestricted was the number I was always given. We're now at 1.8. That was the last number we got back in March from the previous finance director. If we took out the $552,000. And now we want to take, again, possibly take another $613,000 out.
It's nice to have the unrestricted, but we can use the restricted.
Understood.
There's nothing that's holding us back. We got more than enough in there to cover everything.
I made my point, I'm done. You guys can put it out to a vote. And then we'll let the public decide.
I just think there's just too much uncertainty. And I take your budget and I see what the governor's proposed, but I don't see the purpose of putting the burden on the taxpayer at this point in time. We can adjust accordingly throughout the fiscal year.
Yeah.
If we go your rate, what would be the real rate?
I didn't do the math. The increase would be another $613,000.
He was thinking it was slightly north of 1 now.
Yeah, it would be over 1.
You can't pass it. You think we can pass it?
No, absolutely not.
So you're proposing we go ahead so that we can get it knocked down?
No, I'm just proposing that we put it out there so the taxpayer knows what the possibility is. And if the money comes in, then great, then the school has the money to spend. Otherwise, we're gonna tell the school to start cutting, because we definitely shouldn't take another $613,000 out of the fund balance at this point. So the school would have to cut $600,000 if the money doesn't come through. I'm just trying to be realistic. You're right, the number could be 14.5. If it came in at 14.5, but then again, if we're using the number, and the school gets,
How would we get it down under 1 mil?
Do you have any objections to the cuts that we've made thus far?
no, cuts are good.
Do you propose any additional cuts?
No, I gave you the list, so, that I had, we went close to the 400,000 I'd given you. You passed it.
Yeah, we moved 500.
And I'm tired of making cuts.
Well, I think we're operating on a tight budget as it is. I think we made every single cut we could. We used every ounce of time prior to this meeting to make every cut we could to get it to 0.5. If you have any additional suggestions beyond what we've already done, we are all ears. I'd be more than glad to listen to them.
Put that number. We'll get like a set of plan.
You're proposing another cut, get it there?
If you could come up with more cuts than what we've already initiated, then I'm all ears. I'd like to see them, because I think we've cut everything we possibly could. But I could be wrong. I mean, without 13.1, you'd have to ask for additional tax. I mean, the revenue, you'd have to bring in more revenue, and I don't feel comfortable asking the taxpayer at this point. Unless you have any other revenue generating ideas.
Yes.
In the binder here for this year, on Shepherd Hill, line item 611, which on pages 3 and 4, you got 47,962. On the same page, you had the previous year for 018-19. It was 52,962 for the 18-19 binder. So there's $5,000 difference in there.
Are you on page 11 of Shepherd Hill?
Shepherd Hill.
Yep, on the detail?
I wrote down pages 3 and 4.
Okay.
The large line item for 18 and 19, you got the previous year, you got 47,962.
So I think there was $5,000
But,
general supplies.
right, but for the 18-19 binder, which was approved,
Yep.
that says 52,962.
52.8.
52,962. You took $5,000 out of the large sub-item. You went from 23,150 to 18,150. I'm just curious where that $5,000 went.
If I'm on the same page, I did have the 47,962, there is an increase of 57.8. There's $5,000 in general supplies, $12 in science supplies.
Right. You had 52.8 for this year.
Yes,
Okay, but you look to the left for last year, for the current fiscal year.
with 47,962.
Yeah, well, in the binder for 18-19, it says 52,962.
I just don't know that disconnect, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
because when you go to the item where you have a bunch of different items, it says 18,150, which is page 4. And in the current fiscal year, the old binder, it says 23,150.
The original binder that you were referring to is the original budget.
Yeah.
And as we move through the year, we have forecast adjustments. And when I go to board meetings, I ask our board members to make transfers or we have issues in other accounts. So if there's a reduction on your
you got roof leaks and everything to fix, so
Yeah,
maybe that's best
there's a
to,
whole litany of places to go. So what you see in the body that you're looking at now would be the latest forecast of 1819 with all the appropriations adjusted based on the transfers that I requested from the board.
and one other item is on the PCS. Last year, I know I asked a question about this, HVAC in the cafeteria and the offices. You had $9,000 in there for that. I guess that was too expensive. I was just curious where $9,000 went to. Again, you could use,
Again, that's one.
you could use it.
Yeah, it's used in another area only because we feel at that time that we're not going to be able to make ends meet on another critical item. So we talked to the principals and we asked them to get away with one more year of just patching those HVAC units. And they give us those numbers to be able to move.
Two experiences. One is, we reported that there was $580,000 in new special ed costs. We asked every administrator just to cut the budget. These things were not, they were originally designed to be at 52. They're coming in at 47, 48. The reduction is because it went against the 12 students that were outplaced. That's why we only needed 350 instead of 580. And that was a reduction taken by the board as a transfer. So you get the most piece in the budget, and as you know, you gave us the list, and then I had my principals go through your suggestions to see if they could find new
Because
adjustments.
I'm back up to about $80,000 now.
We did ours and got to 30,000 of yours, but,
Because I was looking at some of these, and I said, man, you can do it. Just curious, you just purchased a bunch of furniture for about $2,000. Just curious, could spend that somewhere else necessarily.
if I may. So one thing is, and it's for your deliberation, you just took an action to increase the MDR, which you did, and we'll see if the town will vote that. What that does is it blocks next year, even if we see reductions here. One thing we've done with the town is said, how can we offset costs? Because the number for the MBR is being set now for next year, based on this year. So while we can look at reductions, and we did do that with yours, the number for the town, for the school, is a number that's set. That's part of the reason why the town, and we recommended that you use the 15 million one. I don't know what that is. The governor is building his $600,000 reduction against the fact that they're expecting you to add the $551,000. To me, the only fair thing to do to the public is if the governor's adding the 551, the state is adding that to it, the 600,000 then basically would make that balance next year. In other words, you just added 550, it's not going to come out of the fund balance, we won't spend it. But next year, that number has to remain the same, or you lose the 1.1 million again. By putting in the 15.1, you're protecting the public at a 0.5 mill rate. If you increase them to 1.1, and they give you that money, and the governor's budget is not cut, that money is still going to come to you as excess revenue from the town that goes nowhere except the fund balance. By coming in at the 0.5, you're virtually keeping their liability cost lower, and if the governor's budget doesn't come in, you have every right, because ECS, if lowered, automatically gives you the right to reduce it. I know it's a repeat of the 17-18, but it kept the taxpayers at the least amount of investment, and you can cut us back, because if we don't get a budget on July 1st, we can only spend 1/12 of that budget every month until that number is secured. So you're protected by ECS, we can't spend more than 1/12. We know that. And you're protected by the fact that you can reduce that amount by an amount equal to ECS or use fund balance. That's your choice as a Board of Finance. To ask the public for 1.1 before you know if you need the money, I understand it's very open and I respect Mr. Charwood, but you're actually telling them we're asking you for the money necessary, and that's the number that will be established. That is the appropriation. Beyond that, it only can go lower. If you ask for 1.1, you're virtually asking for more money, and if the governor's budget comes in, you're going to have money that you can't just reduce the mill rate at that point. You can't just cut it, that I know of. You'd have to have some kind of vote. But that's just a perspective. I know that Mr. Dumaine asked the 1.5%, and you have those numbers. You have $12 million raised in taxes for the town, and you have $18 million raised for the schools. That total is $30 million. If you're raising $30 million in total taxes, 1% would be $300,000, and you said $275, and 1.5 would be about $440, $430. So just because your numbers are here, you should know that by making those changes of the 98.5, you are adding a good number to help offset the tax base. Just trying to answer some of the questions that I could see being fielded, because they seem to be pretty evident.
All right, thank you, Ken. Gary, did you have any follow-up question?
No, not really.
Is there any possibility of thinking a roof on the highway, backhoe and animal control, 30,000? 2 little cruisers and a highway plow truck? And take all those out of the fund balance, because as far as I'm concerned, they're non-recurring expenses. And that, along with the copy machines, the 289, would take out of this budget $444,000, which would come out of the fund balance. Now you can do the math, how much 444,000 would take to raise the mill rate.
That would raise it another 0.5 roughly, but I just wanted to go over
We're
what,
taking it out, not raising it. Taking it out.
reducing the fund balance.
By using the fund balance, I'm taking it out of this budget.
I'm trying to find out exactly which cuts you suggested. I think some of those we might already be using out of the fund balance. So you said the animal control van,
Yeah.
we're gonna purchase that from the fund balance for the reasons exactly what you just said. The new
How about
police,
the copy machines?
copy machines, no.
That's 289.
Copy machines we reduced to 27,000 from 37,000, so we took a $10,000 reduction on that from fiscal year 19 to spending analysis. We're running much lower on that than we anticipated.
I'm not asking you to go lower, I'm asking you to get it, instead of the tax dollar, you take it out of the fund balance.
Well-
So that'll take it out of here, right?
No, I understand what you're saying. It's just that we'd rather, copy machines are an annual expense, they're not a one-time cost. We do need them to run.
Oh, I thought these were new machines.
No. What we're also trying to do is eliminate how much money we're taking out of the fund balance. We're already taking $637,000 this year from the fund balance, which is a stronger estimate than we would like, but
Well, maybe I should just ask you a flat question. Are there any non-recurring expenses in this budget that we could take out of the fund balance?
not that we
What
saw.
about the 2 police cars?
2 police cars we know are a reoccurring expense because of their usage. But this year we are purchasing 2 police cars out of the fund balance.
Or are they coming out of the fund balance?
Correct.
How about the plow truck?
Same, so we initially were going to purchase a plow truck. We decided to lease the plow truck out of the fund balance. So that would be a recurring cost, and we were able to save roughly.
I get it.
I appreciate that. We were expecting that level of scrutiny.
Well, and one thing we do need to keep in mind, as Scott was mentioning earlier, is how much has already been coming from the fund balance, and how much we have, of course, for 2 months, less than 2 months worth of bills. So that is something to keep in mind, and I know I personally have talked about that with Kathy and with our finance director, how, we definitely can find certain things that can come out of the fund balance, but we gotta be very cautious with that, to not be giving that fund balance more and more, because then we're shooting ourselves in the foot, basically. Doing that, so just something to keep in mind, obviously, when thinking about things that come from the fund balance.
In the normal course of doing business, do we use the fund balance?
Well, no. We try to use it in situations that would require an increase in the mill rate, or in extenuating circumstances, say a severe storm that could just not be anticipated or budgeted for in June. Things like, On an annual basis, no, we'd rather not use $637,000 from our fund balance.
But do you go in there on occasion to borrow instead of going out to a lender?
No, not that I'm aware of. No.
Not that I'm aware of either, Ted. Not since I've been here, no.
So if you did not have any revenue but you had expenses, you would get a loan?
Like I said, I cannot speak for the time I've been here, we have not used the fund balance to offset our expenses, no.
In 5 years I've sat here, if that all that's the case, there's never been a problem with the fund balance. Why all of a sudden we're worried that the fund balance is gonna be too low? We haven't used it in 5 years. I see no reason other than it helps out our Moody's rating if we need a loan. Do we need a loan on anything? We don't need a loan. For the past 5 years, we've not had to use a loan. I'm not afraid of the fund balance.
My understanding is we're gonna need a loan to fix all the heating systems in all schools.
I haven't seen that.
No, but it's coming.
I don't,
No, I'm just saying. The chair of the Board of Ed said it two meetings ago. So there is a bond coming.
and what would the difference be?
I don't know.
What happens if the governor's budget doesn't get passed till October, and that's happened in the past? There's no money, we have to fund ourselves.
I think Ken said that variance between 15.1 and 14.6 is not going to be expensed. If that does change, we just drop the education budget. Where there is no planned expenses for that fund, as Ken had just illustrated. So we can adjust accordingly, we can be more flexible if the budget does come down a little, if the ECS grant does come down a little.
Still in 2 months if it's passed in October or whatever. It's happened in the past. If the governor's budget doesn't pass, and then another month goes by, if they have their problems and, we speculate, we don't know. I hope it passes the first time through and everything's great. Of course it doesn't. But in the past, we have had budgets that have gone on months, and the town had to foot their own bills until that budget came through and the revenues then came through. So the more we take from the fund balance, if we don't have 2 months, if we have 1 month, we're only going to live for 1 month.
I think that's a dark picture of our fiscal situation. I think we have enough money in the fund balance to ensure that we're still operating, the lights are still on. I would say raising the tax mill rate, without being able to change it at a later date, or reducing it halfway through the fiscal year would be, I think, unfair to the taxpayer, especially if Board of Ed isn't budgeting for the 15 point, isn't going to expense the what is it, $618,000. I think we've taken every caution we can. I don't think that, if we lose, if the state doesn't provide their budget in time to a point where our municipality falls apart, considering our significant fund balance, then the whole state is going to fall apart. That's a very dark picture.
Okay, now, I get your point, but it's a cautionary tale because it has happened in the past. 3 years ago, was it not? 3 years ago.
The crisis hits by December, you have 14 million in fund balance, you collect $30 million in taxes, 15 million in the first half, second half comes in January. So we noticed that by November, right, that was the time that we felt that we had to freeze everything, because by that time, you're not getting the state aid, and you have your money plus 15, you have about 29 million to work with, up until December, but bills accrue. So you're right, it comes to a short point, within 6 months, this has to resolve to recover all the funds.
Good point, because we are collecting taxes.
Yeah, the first half of the year is 15 million a year. So I wouldn't worry about the 14, but I think that by December, you have a very good caution. That's why we freeze, and that's why they say you just can't spend until we know what the ECS is. I think you get some good protections there.
Is the tax sale figured in here somewhere?
We are not projecting any supplemental income tax.
Are you talking about the tax sale that we just had, Ken?
It's
Yes,
just
that's,
due in a couple of months.
yes, that was figured into the back taxes.
How much are you?
Is that figured into the budget?
Hang on a second.
Yeah, $425,000. Yep, back
Yeah.
You know how much?
Did you, hold on, yeah.
So right now, we're only at 95% of the current grant. If you add in the back taxes, it comes to 100%. So you can't do both. You can't raise the tax rate and put in the 400. You can't do it.
So we have our projections here. It says back taxes revenue is collected at 126%. Is that an incorrect estimate? You're telling me it's 92?
No, we're at 95 of the current grand list, the
Okay.
2017. If you add in back taxes, then I'm at 100%, not 126.
Well, I think I have a different.
Yeah, we have different numbers.
Estimates here.
Well, where'd you get the estimates?
These come from the finance office, the report after they do all their entries and stuff, and this is up to date. So right now, if you look at our property tax revenue, our annual budget was $26,776,801.
No, that's what's collected. That's what I.
No, we have collected, what we have collected is $26,786,349.
Right, but that's with back taxes. I'm
Well-
talking about the current grand list.
So why are the back taxes right underneath it?
I don't know what you're looking at. My reports are different.
Yeah, back taxes.
Yeah, because
collection
this is
is
separate for us, Karen, so
I wish you guys would have talked to me about this before being
this is what
broadsided.
was on, this was proposed on last year's budget also. If you look at 2018-19, you, the past finance director had used $425,000.
Yep, right. Yeah, I
and
do
that's
agree
what-
that, yep.
So those are separate.
Right.
So here is the property tax revenue. This is
Yep.
just the revenue. Then you have a line item, back tax revenue, $425,000.
Yep, I get
And
it.
because of the tax sale, you have collected $536,587.07.
The tax sale only collected over 200,000, but that's okay.
So at that point, you're 126.3%
I would have to do
over.
that. 'Cause I don't.
But
work on
this
that.
is what comes right from when they do the deposit and all of that. This is what,
Because right now, as of March, this is my total collection. Right there, as of March.
so then,
That's-
so what they're saying
That's
is, it's-
everything, total, back taxes and current, everything.
so then that is something that the past, this I have
I don't-
gotten every single
I don't know.
week
But you should-
since I've been here, and it comes
Yeah.
from the finance office, so.
You should have come
Is there any
back.
clarification or discrepancy?
I would think you would need clarification before you go with the 98.5%. Absolutely.
Well, then, I just have to say, there's a big discrepancy.
I would think so. I would-
Is what
I mean, I'm getting
posted,
put on the spot, I would definitely have to go
Yeah.
look and see what's going on, but
because. even-
I couldn't, I know you can't do both. You can't collect back taxes and raise the rate. You know, because this is the first year we did back taxes, with 425. You guys never did back taxes prior to this year we're in now.
Correct. So last year, 2018-19 was the first year you used that $425,000.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
So what we're doing is,
You're still using that and you're raising the rate. I don't, you're not raising the rate to 98.5?
to 98.5 we are, but we're basing that off property tax revenue, and this is what, so there is a big discrepancy.
Yeah, there
then,
is.
If you're
Yeah.
saying that's what you've collected.
This is as of March.
And this is what,
That's what I'm saying, I need to look at it, because I don't,
yeah.
because that's
So then there should be a
126.
balancing point between your office and the finance office.
Ish, I would think so.
Because if you look at the proposed budget, Karen,
The new one? That was just.
no, this is the proposed. that has the 2 mil increase on it.
Well, I'm,
Because what you and Kelly had proposed is adding in the supplemental tax of 338. We didn't do that, we took that out.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Is there going to be a recess for the sidebar to discuss the discrepancy, or is the meeting continuing?
Actually, we're going to entertain a motion not to go in recess, but to look at another possible date to come back together, because basically what it comes down to is there's a discrepancy here that needs to be clarified, and we are not going to try to rush through this and figure this out tonight. I know I personally would not feel comfortable in casting my vote on something with a discrepancy until we know 100% that that's wrong. So we will proceed, but we're not going to be proceeding as indicated on the agenda with acting. The question I would ask the board is, when would we want to set a timeline for the meeting?
What's the timeline we have to meet to be able to have a town meeting on May 6th?
All right, so the way it is according to our budget calendar, tomorrow is when we were supposed to get the report due to the town clerk's office. But the reality is there is still a little bit of wiggle room. We have the public hearing scheduled for the 6th, so you got to factor in, looking at the calendar, exactly how many days out from the 6th you have to post it. It's not as of tomorrow.
Right, so how many days do you have to post it ahead of time?
10.
Are you allowed to continue your meeting if you don't close and resume it? It would continue this meeting, so the closing date would be a new date. You would not have to repost, since everybody here wanted to hear it is here. I think that's legally allowed. Just don't close the meeting, just continue it to tomorrow or the next day, whatever you want.
Yeah, I certainly want to know how the board feels again about
Can you get
proceeding.
Can the discrepancy be completed by tomorrow?
I can tell you numbers tomorrow, absolutely. We can work together tomorrow.
I don't know, I'm sure there's some disconnect. I hope we can get to it tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure if we will, but
Yeah, I can just tell you what I
there's
can.
no way of saying whether or not we will.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Time.
I'd say,
Only 10 days.
Yeah, no, I know, and I mean, I'm certainly willing to be flexible with my schedule. I mean, we could meet on Thursday, Friday, well, again, I'm speaking for
Friday.
myself.
Friday.
Friday, yeah, I remember one time we did a Friday meeting, so if we haven't, I'm
I'm
certainly.
talking about Friday, I can't meet Thursday.
Okay. All right, so I would ask, again, for any input from the board as far as scheduling time. After this discussion.
Right.
Okay.
Gary and David.
Yeah, Gary, did you said no?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good for Friday.
All right. So it looks like then we run into the issue there, but of course Scott is not here, so he can't speak for his schedule, but it looks like we have an issue with having all of our members present. So any other suggestions from the board as far as how they would like to proceed?
We really don't think that we can't get the numbers together tomorrow. We can't get that done tomorrow morning, so we can meet tomorrow night. It's kind of an important issue.
yeah, it is, and that's why I'd rather not say definitively yes. I don't know. I don't know where the discrepancy is. It's a significant.
Let's give it a try tomorrow, Tom. We'll just continue the meeting tomorrow and hope it's done.
Okay.
6:30 tomorrow.
You gotta get it in. Okay. So we will do that then. I have a continuation of the Board of Finance meeting, 6:30 tomorrow here at the Town Hall.
Yep, I made that motion.
Okay, I have a motion for that. Is there a second? Okay, a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of having the continuation of the meeting tomorrow, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. So moving on now to citizen participation. Just a reminder, again, it needs to be focused on the special meeting agenda here, not just random items that we usually bring up at maybe a regular Board of Finance meeting. So please stick to the agenda, speak loudly, and identify yourself before asking the question. Yes.
Jack down to Pond. In 2017, we talked about borrowing money from the fund balance. And it was stated that anything we borrow had to be paid back within 12 months, 12% interest. I ain't heard nothing about paying any of this money back.
Yes, we have brought that up at previous meetings.
As of right now, there's no plan in place to replenish anything that's taken out in this year's budget. 12% interest. We do have an annual contribution of $500,000 as of right now. That there's no plan to accrue interest on anything that's taken away from the fund balance. We have a healthy fund balance. And we're trying to ensure that the mill rate doesn't increase by using.
I can't come here. I'm gonna call spade a spade. You've been unemployed, what, 2 or 3 weeks? And you're telling us that there's $15 million coming from the state? This gentleman says no. What am I supposed to believe?
Well, I'm saying we don't know the number.
That's right, you don't know the numbers, but you're gonna come in here and tell me and all these other people that it's $15 million. That's what we estimate. How long were you on your last job? I know it ain't relevant.
No, it's not. So,
Well, you've been here 3 weeks, I ain't too long to need it now.
is that
I'm
all?
all done.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Joe Bissett, Plainfield Pike. Does the Board of Finance feel that they had adequate time to look over what came out tonight? And 2, how can we adjust the tax collection rate without talking to the tax collector?
That's what I want to know.
Well, we,
So what we do is we take the collection rate, and every week when checks are cut or deposits are made, what goes into, we create a report. So I'm looking at the report that I just asked to have printed out, and according to this, which I would hope the numbers are correct, because these are deposits that go into our accounts, and these are payments that are made. According to this, for our other,
Did the tax collector print out that report?
this comes from the finance, so the girls that post these deposits that come from the tax collector and go into our general ledger, our journal account, that's where these numbers come from. So if there is a discrepancy, it either, and this is just, there had to be an error in somebody posting something, or deposits are not accurate, getting crossed between the offices. Because this is what we look at every single week once the checks are printed out. I get this every single week, so that I know, it lists every single department with every salary in it, with every supplies and expense, and it tells you what was budgeted, what has been used, and what percentage we have left. So,
Will there be an explanation tomorrow of what was wrong?
if we can find the discrepancy, in one day, I can't tell you because we don't know where the discrepancy is gonna be.
We gotta look.
Joe, just on the other part of your question, I mean, you saw, obviously, we were delayed in the starting of the meeting, and the budget as it's presented here in front of us was distributed. We had not received, none of the Board of Finance members had received it prior to that.
Plainfield. going to pose this as a question once again. I come to a lot of meetings. There seems to always be some kind of a misstep between the selectmen and the boards and the departments not being on the same page or not working together when stuff is presented to the people in the town. And we've had this happen before. So why does this keep happening? Excuse me, Mr. Secretary, are you a tax expert?
I'd like to consider myself a municipal budget specialist.
But you're new coming in, right? So why would you not take an opportunity to meet with our tax collector to discuss how she does things, to get yourself up to par with how another department head is doing things? And no offense, you are new here, and she's worked in that department for many years. And we've already had issues with employees and miscommunication in public meetings where they felt disparaged. So I don't want to see that happen again.
To be fair, I think the tax collector was away on vacation last week. So I didn't, of the 2 days that her and I were on the premises together, we were working hard and trying to reduce the tax rate to 0.5 from the proposed 2. Based on the numbers that we had printed out, projected, and we tried to dot our I's and cross our T's based on the information that we had. Not once did we give it consideration that that would be inaccurate. Moving forward, I think I've made it clear to every single department head that communication must improve, and I hope to be a much more positive communicator with every single person. I result the disconnect between us and the tax collector to be an anomaly because of her time off and the numbers we were using. And we did actually discuss, I think in passing, that we had to meet over the last couple of days. And I did call you to try and resolve whatever issues we had with Webster Bank. So there is communication here. It's not as if people are ignoring each other or petty grievances are creating problems for us to do our job. It's just more an issue that we hope to rectify tomorrow. And I hope we do. I'm not saying that we will. I very much want to try to make this the first order of business and make sure we rectify it. But you're right. I very much want to create more open lines of communication. And anybody who would like to talk, feel free. I mean, I'm not the person with all the answers. I can very much, I can definitely make things better based on what I hear from the public in Plainfield. So please feel free to say whatever you feel.
Well, the other thing I feel is it's fiscally irresponsible to create a budget on a number that you're not sure of. I agree with Scott Charwood on that. If the governor is putting in black and white 14.9, then we have to do something with that. And I don't think that Scott is saying necessarily, you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Charwood, that it's a mill increase. Maybe there needs to be additional cuts. So.
Well, I think with the extra day, I think we'd be open to hear more cuts. I know we did give this budget to everybody a little late, so if you have an extra day to look over everything, you can come back with more cuts. We'd be more than welcome to hear them. As far as this $600,000 gap between the 15.1 and the 14.5, Ken did say that variance would not be spent, and we can adjust accordingly throughout the fiscal year. So there's no point in increasing the tax rate on the taxpayer if we have no certainty as to whether or not we're going to.
But maybe you need to get the budget to where it needs to be, at the 14 with a secure number, and cut back. And then if we get to 15, then next year we can spend more money if need be.
I hear you, but I would argue that the number is secure because we're not budgeting for that $600,000 that we're.
We were told that was secure 3 years ago, too.
I can only speak on what we heard tonight. We know that number is not going to be budgeted for, and we'll be able to adjust accordingly throughout the fiscal year. I think that's a prudent way to move forward, as opposed to raising the mill rate on speculation and not being able to turn it back.
but your only solution is a mill increase and not necessarily freezes and cuts.
Well, like I said,
It's kind of insulting to the taxpayers that every year we get a mill increase or home evaluations and employees keep getting raises. I'm sorry, something has to give. We're 54% below poverty. The answer cannot be taxes, it has to be economic development, jobs. Companies are leaving our town. We can't keep paying the taxes. So, and we can't vote on a number that we're not secure on either. That's irresponsible in my opinion.
Sioux Hall Central Village. Last year at this time, the Board of Education had a PowerPoint presentation showing if they had to make a cut, they listed everything they would cut for the first cut. And then they actually had another one if it was going to be cut again, specifically saying what would be cut. This year, no mention about contingency plan. I can't remember about the general government, whether they didn't do a PowerPoint presentation with all that information, but definitely the Board of Education. So what's different this year is the first select woman and our new director, our acting financial director, keep saying we can save the taxpayers by taking the money, if it gets voted down, take the money out of the general fund. Last year, that wasn't mentioned. It was, these are the cuts that we're going to take, and that's how you operated. Another thing the Board of Ed should be thinking about, a lot of their people have retired. And so they said they saved money from them retiring because they're hiring people at a lower salary. Well, how many people are going to keep retiring? You know, so that you can say, well, we saved money by all these people retiring. That's something that, you know, they should be thinking about. Well, you might have to make some cuts. You know, 2.6, 3%, everybody got their raises. On the town side, even though the contracts were not negotiated this year, so they're either on the second part of their contract or the third year. You know, the police are going to get their cars. But what about the roof on the town garage? I mean, here you have this equipment that you have bought that's brand new, but if the roof is leaking and you're not taking care of that this year, it just seems like there are other places to cut, but they're not willing. I think in the past, the budgets have gone in, okay, we expect the people to vote the first budget down, so this is our contingency plan for the second time they vote. And I think sometimes it's even gone for the third vote. There is still, everybody, it's just that, how much contractual is in the budget for the town, and what's the contractual percentage in the Board of Education budget? And you can't touch that. Every year we're saying, when in May, when you have your meeting, people are going to get up and say, well, how come you didn't cut salaries? How come you didn't do this? And the same thing, you know, it's contractual. Well, I think the town can do a lot better with negotiating the contracts. There was a gentleman who pointed out super statistics about this town. And when you hear senior citizens, none of you are worrying that they can't take all their medicine or pay for their medicine because they can't afford even $200 or $300 more for their taxes. So, like I said, again, there are more cuts that can be taken. If you don't do that, you better inform the public before they vote, you know, what could happen or what you're up to, like's been mentioned.
The one thing I would just say is, I know what you're referring to in the beginning when you talked about the contingency plan, and I do remember that coming up last year, and I did make mention of that when Ken was doing, at the end of his presentation. Basically, I asked him if it still existed. I mean, I have a copy of it, obviously I can look out from last year, but I wasn't sure if it had changed, if some of those were not on the list. And I know Ken did acknowledge that, yes, there is a contingency plan, but going back to what your point was, is that no, it was not presented, the contingency plan was not presented on PowerPoint.
I mean, you even talked about closing Moosup Elementary last year.
Right, I remember.
Right, there's been no discussion about that, so. I'm just saying, there's more that can be done. I don't think enough's been done. You're just gonna say, okay, the people will vote for it because it's only $500,000, and take the rest of, if it doesn't, then if there's an increase, take it out of the reserve fund. This is a new philosophy. And it's been in the news, I think I've seen it written in social media. I mean, it's either Winnie or the Norwich Bulletin. So.
No, there's a lot to take in there. As far as finding revenue-generating proposals, that's something we're definitely taking a look at. Finding ways to make people, this may sound crazy, make people live, visit, and work in Plainfield are things that we're hoping to initiate in addition to budget cuts. It's not, it's hard to overpromise. I'm not trying to overpromise, but to think of ways that we can improve the quality of life in Plainfield is something that we take very seriously. It's not a matter of, I mean, I hope to make enough copies for everybody to take and see if they can come up with suggestions on how to cut the budget, because it was an arduous process over the last week. Coming up with over $500,000 in cuts is not easy, especially when trying to consider the services that we need to provide. Trucks are rotting out, police cars need to be on patrol. With the rising opioid crisis in town, we need to ensure that all the police officers respond adequately. There are a lot of things to take into consideration in cutting the budget. And you hate to think of what might happen throughout the course of the year if you were to cut something. And it weighs heavily on our minds trying to figure out exactly what to fund for. So to say that this was an easy process, no, it wasn't. To feel proud about reducing the burden on the taxpayer while still providing enough services to sustain a quality of life is something that I feel comfortable with. But if you have more suggestions on what to cut, I'm all ears.
Maureen Sullivan, Connecticut. I agree. I think that the Board of Education, the Education Department, should consider contingency alternatives, so that if indeed there could have to be cuts made, and it's serious, I think they should be able to come up with a plan. And since that was a presentation last year, maybe it should happen again this year.
Yes, Pat.
Robert Colley, Oregon, Connecticut. I'll be brief. I know everybody wants to go, I'm sure. First, quick question. What percentage are we holding on fund balance? I know you said 2 months, but we usually use a percentage like 12, 15, 8, 10. I know that bonding companies recommend a certain percentage. I don't know.
We have 2.1 months in reserve, in unrestricted, which will allow us to operate for 2.1 months. As far as what percentage you're talking about, I think we're at 14, and our overall operating budget is 14.8. Our overall operating budget is 48, so I think that's somewhere, it's well over.
All right. I know that the state usually goes by percentage. That's always, I always used to equate it to percentages. That's so my fault for that, I suppose. I just want to surmise just quickly what kind of went on here tonight. The cuts from the original budget, the 2.03 mil increase or whatever, the cuts, and I'll use quotes, is what you're saying is by increasing the tax rate from 97%, I think you said, to 98.5, which is 1.5% difference. You just mathematically put that 98% in, and you're going to get, I think it was the one that said, an extra $430,000. That's
$473,000.
So that was your cuts, though. And then I heard the 95. That was at the very beginning of the meeting. 95,000 from the police department, but nothing else was said throughout this whole meeting.
No, we had about, I wouldn't call them cuts, I'd call them adjustments.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So really, the adjustment to gain where we could equate that to that 0.5 mil and lower the 2.0 mil is by increasing that number from 97 to 98.5. That's the only thing that's really been done.
No, we initiated from the proposed budget, the initial proposed budget from several weeks ago to now. The difference is seen on page 2 and 3 of the handout, which we hope to have for everybody, but that total equates to $532,000 in adjustments. So if you add the 473 plus the 532, close to $1 million in adjustments from the initial proposal for FY20 to what we have today, what we're presenting today.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Robert Smith, Plainfield. We keep saying cut, but actually you're deferring to the fund balance to cover the costs, so you're not really cutting anything. You're just going to the fund balance to pay for it, right? That's what I'm hearing.
No, we have, so of the $532,000 that we are adjusting, not necessarily cutting, only $155,000 of that has been deferred to the fund balance.
Okay. And the second thing is, Mr. Professor, how much are you planning for the fiscal year to operate on? What's your base now?
For next year?
Yeah, I know it's not going to be at 35.
The budget for next year at the MBR rate is $35,980,347.
Yeah, what are you planning to operate on? Because you're not going to use the 500.
For this year we're at the flat fund that we have, $35,428,000. Any money that comes will just not be spent. It's just has to be credited against the fund balance, or we just won't spend it. I couldn't spend $500,000 between now and June if I tried.
Okay.
I mean, really, just.
I could.
Well, I can't.
I'm sure you could.
I can't, not have a job, not have a job.
My question is if we use that $15 million number, and it comes in lower, $600,000 lower, does a school take a cut? Can we cut their budget by $600,000?
Yes, that's what we're
Categorically, that's the plan.
If we use that higher number and it comes in lower, we can make them cut $600,000.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that's just categorical. That's what I want people to understand. That number is controlled for the town.
It won't affect the MUR and all that.
It does not.
Any other comments or questions? Yes.
One question, are we able to have access to public to the adjustments that you made? Can you put it on Facebook, or can you put it on the website so that we can download it or print it out ourselves so we can see what you're actually doing?
Sure.
Because it's kind of unfair tonight that you're talking and we can't see.
No, again, we just, we've been working to the very last minute, make sure we had the right number, make sure we could cut as much as we could, and we used every ounce of time we could. And I didn't provide enough handouts for everybody. So yeah, I see no problem posting it on the city website.
Can you make sure it's there tomorrow morning so that we're able to look at it?
Sure.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Just one last question. You said that the plow truck, instead of purchasing it, we're going to look to lease it,
Well, finances, yes.
finance it.
We
And that's going to go out to bid?
No, you don't have to when you lease.
Not
No,
with
you don't have
finance.
to.
I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry,
Not when it's leased, no, you don't have to. Just like the police cars, and Mike, you can correct me, you're here. We don't put those, well, we do put those out to bid. So, with the plow truck, I'll check on that.
By the procurement policy, it'll go out to bid unless you go into the state portal, unless you can buy it off the state website, which we can not circumvent, but we can bypass the bid policy because of the state bidding policy.
So am I correct? Okay, so quickly, so if you go on that site, there are certain companies that sell used vehicles, is that what I'm understanding?
No, state procurement
Yes.
has a list of vendors that are deemed acceptable, and they speed up the procurement process on behalf of any municipality that chooses to use the state. So So yeah, there's an opportunity to use the state procurement website and find a vendor that would be able to work with us at a price point that the state has deemed acceptable.
And part of that is a misunderstanding on my part. When you said, do we go out to bid? I'm thinking to the leasing company, we don't go out to bid for that. What the finance director has done in the past, she contacts all the different finance places and gets the best rate. So that was a misunderstanding on my part. I thought you meant as we go through the lease to find a lease company to do that. So that was my misunderstanding when I answered that question. So I'm sorry.
You still have a question? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Trav Harmon, that being said, I know the RFP process, the RFQ process well. Is there any prohibition to expand beyond the groupings of the leasing companies? Because there are plenty of people who have money and want to give it to us. It's who wants to give us at the lowest rate. Is there a reason why we're not seeking out through DAS or through other RFP methods? Because I understand about finding and then, going to the 10 people and say, hey, who's got the lowest rate, and then choosing it. Is there a reason why we don't expand on that further?
So I will have to check into how the finance director has handled it in the past. I know in conversation with her and she always goes out and looks for the best rate. So I can't tell you how she does that right now. So that's something I will look into. Thank you.
Yeah.
You talked about buying a truck. The truck was stuck from the salt to the sand. Now, we put the salt in a truck body. We don't put it inside the cab. And it goes out of the truck body and now onto the ground. Why can't we buy a new truck body instead of spending $197,000 on a truck? Have you looked into it?
I have not. I do not have an answer to that.
Okay,
Well, I think the initial estimate on the truck was $225,000. After speaking with the highway department, we realized that we didn't need $225,000. It was only $190,000 it would cost. Upon further examination of the budget, we realized that if we financed it at $65,000 a year, we gave ourselves enough room to negotiate at a lower price, possibly finding something that could provide the job that needs to be done with a cap of an expenditure of $65,000.
Isn't the truck busted out of the garage? The truck's fine, the whole mileage.
It is the truck frame that rusts out. It's not just the body.
Right. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, where did you find this out, that it went from 250 or 225 to 197? Like, where did you get all this information?
Oh, it was proposed by the highway department. So the estimate was $225,000. The projected was $225,000, which you will be able to see tomorrow online. And we moved it initially to 190. That was what we had projected last year. I'm sorry, that's what we had presented last week. And now we have it at $65,000 over the course of 3 years at a maximum expenditure over those 3 years. And it's going to be funded from the fund balance as opposed to the budget.
So Mr. Ravenel found that out and gave you that information?
Well, I think that's what was requested at the beginning of the budget process. So he said he requested 190, and for some reason he was given 225.
If the state decides that you need to pay the teacher pension of $88,000, where are you going to get that money? It's not in either budget.
That was not come out of committee. The bill they came through canceled and said that they won't support it. Legislature canceled it.
Well, next year, well, it could, and it would be
Another year they
more.
could. They can't do it for this year. It didn't come out of committee.
Okay.
So it won't. They squashed it last year. They squashed it this year.
But that was the amount that they wanted.
About 88.
Tomorrow evening, 6:30 here at the Town Hall to discuss item 2020. So with that said, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, okay. Yes, sorry. We'll cut to that. So, all right, so we are in recess with that said, not adjourned. Thank you.